Welcome to Board Ghost, a story broadcast with games as the engine.
If living is a highway, then heaven is a bus stop. Been waiting for a minute there, but has it been forever? 'Cause dying don't agree with me, no.
We believe you're out there, hungry for stories for shared experience. We can't see you, can't hear you, yet we will play for you. This night's offering is Rusalka. Thank you, Nick, for allowing us access to this game while it's still in process, because we love playing it. Our humble players, myself, John Holt, with me.
Ken Breeze.
And we have two guests tonight.
Hi, I'm Amanda McLaughlin. I'm the founder and CEO of Multitude Productions. I co-host Spirits with Julia here and Join the Party, which is a 5e actual play D&D podcast focusing on accessibility and kind of story-first play.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I'm Julie Schaffini. I'm a voice actor, sound designer, a bunch of other things, and the co-host of Spirits Podcast.
Welcome. Thank you both so much for coming on.
Yes,
Thank you. Our podcast is primarily about hags in bodies of water, so we're extremely excited.
This is on brand.
Yeah, we'll get into who our Rusalka are, starting with our archetypes. And so, Julie, you've gravitated towards tides.
I'm
right
legally
away.
obligated to pick Tides. I am the voice actor in a show called Tides.
There you go.
Which is about a xenobiologist who is trapped on an alien planet where extreme tidal situations have caused her to get separated from her crew.
Wow, cool. And is that out and available?
It is. The first season is out. We are working on the second season now.
Cool. Thank you. Congratulations.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
Ken, anything jumping out to you?
It's going towards ghosts
Do it.
right
Yep,
now.
Go there.
I'm going to go ghosts.
I'm going to do sorrow because I want an upbeat game tonight.
Clearly.
And I'm going to go Moonlight, which seems compelling and extremely dangerous.
Yes, because we have the tides, Rusalka. I'm just going to say Rusalka because I like that. We're going to have to be on the ocean.
Julie, you want to give us a primer on the Rusalka as a genre?
Sure. Drowned women, basically. Though the transition happened later on in Slavic mythology. Originally, they were guardians of bodies of water, usually associated with fertility and that kind of thing. And then as mostly Christianity kind of spread to the area, they became more spirits, like you see with a lot of quote-unquote fey creatures. And the Rusalka became sort of a negative connotation and became these drowned women who were cursed to live there. Usually they were often considered cursed because they drowned because of unwanted children or unwanted pregnancies, that kind of thing. There's a great version of the Rusalka in the book Deathless by Catherine Valenti, I want to say.
Yeah.
Which is a Soviet-Russian retelling of the Koschei the Deathless story.
It is fabulous.
It is very, very good. There's also a graphic novel
Sounds
version
sick,
and a
yeah.
regular novel version, if I
Ooh.
remember correctly.
I read the regular novel. I got to check out those sweet illustrations.
The regular novel, very sexy.
It
right?
is extremely
very,
sexy.
very sexy.
Reminds me of when I read Wicked when I was about 10, and there is a lot
Oh,
of
yeah.
sex in that book.
There is some, like-
There's weird, yeah. What?
Deathless has some very, very good like BDSM stuff in it. just like warning, I guess, if that's not your thing, but also like highlight.
Also a feature if that's your jam.
That is your
And before we get into any of this, we can introduce our Rusalka and answer the questions that will help us with the pond. Before we even do that, we can kind of draw our pond shape on here. Would either of you like to draw a pond shape?
As the tide. Would you like to take that honor?
Sure, why not?
So who would like to introduce their Rusalka first?
I'm happy to go.
All right, go for it.
Bodana is the aspect of the ghost. She appears with this hair it's an updo. It's very much in a style of an ancient culture that is out of date. I think there are a lot of braids. There's also tines sticking out of her head, almost like porcupine quills. She also wears outdated and outmoded dress. It's a very long gown that has very tapered sleeves and billowing shoulders. She has this cape that seems to go on and on and on forever. And that's Bodana.
I am playing Rurik, who is the aspect of Moonlight. She has a crown of lilies, and as the moon waxes and wanes, she gets older and younger. So she does kind of the full Benjamin Button there, and then the reverse once a month. And she also has quite twinkling eyes, so they are like extremely piercing. You can't really look directly at them. They're illuminated, and it is frankly extremely off-putting. So she also has a connection to a strange creature that makes its home on the eastern edge of the pond. I am going to decide that that creature is an albino crocodile.
You have a cardinal direction.
Right.
So
Yeah.
if you want to draw Windrose and show us where is east on
Yeah,
this,
I will.
that's cool too.
I forgot to answer my question. I can do it at the
Yeah,
end.
we'll come
whenever.
back to you.
Yeah.
I do also appreciate you saying the reverse of a Benjamin Button, which is just regular aging.
Yeah, it's regular aging.
Yep, checks out. My Rusalka is Mariška. She is just so wet. Not what I want.
Excuse me, ma'am. It's 8 o'clock on a Tuesday.
It's a Wednesday, all right.
On a Wednesday, even.
All of her clothing is dripping wet. Her hair from far away just looks completely soaked and stringy, but it is in fact seaweed. When you approach the pond and she smiles at you to give you your boon or what have you, you notice that her teeth seem far too sharp for what they are.
Yoinks.
So my question is, where have the tides worn away the pool, weakening the walls until they're threatening to collapse? And then I get to mark my answer on the map.
Awesome.
And so where's the shore?
Yeah, do you want to draw on a
I
shore?
think we'll do the shoreline, like right on the southern things.
I'm playing Semyon. Her aspect is sorrow. She appears pale white and paper thin. Almost if you imagine like crepe paper or
Like crinoline.
yeah, just but like moth-eaten, and her edges fray and pieces actually kind of flake off of her as she moves. Her features are almost like tears in this crinoline. So she's almost a woman of paper and floats along the water, sometimes beneath it, sometimes above it. Her voice is intelligible, but also feels like someone rubbing just pieces of parchment together, just this sort of ruffling, shuffling sound that sort of frays at the edges. She's very tattered and fragmented. And her question is, what symbols of mourning have been placed by the pool? And mark the answers on the map. So there's the croc over there and the ocean
Yep.
over there. I'm going to say over here on this southwestern edge of the pond, close to where the ocean meets. I'll say that there are poles. They're very tall, set along the water, kind of along both parts here. And there are wending sheets set up like flags,
What is a wending sheet?
like a sheet that you would put on a corpse.
A
Why ghosts
shroud.
look like ghosts? It's a shroud. of a wending. Ken, do you want to answer your question?
I do. I have an answer for the question that was not asked, but now shall be, which is, what wards and barriers do superstitious villagers make in a fruitless attempt to protect themselves?
Nice.
I do like the implication that it's fruitless.
It is entirely
And so,
fruitless.
and so, too, I think you should define where the village is.
Indeed.
located.
And I'm feeling that it is to the northwest of us. What I'm feeling are placed stones, almost like flagstones, that have been placed in a certain configuration. Within that configuration, they also place on an altar offerings. They leave shoes as an
Cool.
offering or acorns.
To help the dead on their journey away from here.
Exactly. Away from here, eat some acorns, take some shoes.
Go hang out with Zeus.
Walk across the sea.
Love it.
All right, so we've got our pond. We have our Rusalka.
Approaching from the direction of the village. It is nighttime, of course, a bewitching hour, perhaps. It is after midnight. There are clouds scudding across the sky. There are stars, gibbous moon, some light. And this figure that is approaching seems to be making their way towards the stones. They are rather tall and stout. They seem to have very strong arms and strong shoulders. They are female, dressed in the garb of a sailor or someone who plies the sea. They are moving towards the stones, taking off both of their shoes. They've sat down on one of the stones. He's saying some words to themselves. This is the only way. This must be the way. It's time for me to make a decision. And as she takes off her shoes, they are thick boots that one might tramp across a midship or a deck on. She places them, they're leather, it's looking like pirate boots. She, on bare feet, begins to now approach the pool and calls out, Rusalka, wise women of the tides, I've come seeking a boon. Tales across the sea. Please, help me. Help me to find the life I'm supposed to be leading.
So there's a silence and a still, and the wind actually recedes. The sheets stop their flapping. The waves become a little louder as the wind stops. And the animals around the pond also get quieter as, flashing through the dark and the shadows, waves this wispy, pale figure whose form doesn't get any more distinct as it gets closer. And right next to this petitioner's head, you hear this crackling, shuffling, and it becomes words. They say, people will look on you and see you for who you are. The only way to change your fortune and find a new path is to change the first thing people see. Change your very essence. I can give you this. I can give you a new fate and a new face.
The petitioner starts back as Semyon appears, and she falls to her knees in the sand, looking up with bright eyes. She has this kerchief. She looks up wide-eyed, but then troubled, as she says, but I like the way I look. I like how powerful I am. I like how strong I am. I only wish to find glamour. I have heard tales across the sea that there's wealth and wonder beyond anything here in the village.
There's a tearing, sort of angry sound that stops you. It's not loud, it's just jarring. And you hear the voice, that face you have, that strength you bear, that is not the path. I will give you what you need to become the thing that you should be. With that, we flash back. We see a flag being raised, being hoisted. It is a Jolly Roger, but with long, flowing hair on the actual figure. So, and a dagger with a rose handle in its skeletal teeth. Mm-hmm.
Classic.
As the camera comes down to the deck, we see Semyon in the prime of her life, barking orders as sailors rush about the deck, a glint in her eye as she points over to a ship, a small little ship that's trying to get away from her deadly reaver boat. And they rush forward, and she's the first to leap across the deck as the fearful cries come up that Semyon the Red comes reaving.
As Semyon looks upon this petitioner, it's very clear that this woman is not a pirate. Though she may have had the boots of a stout sailor. She has no weapons. She has no scars, save those scars that one might get by pulling in nets and threading hooks onto lines. And she does seem now to be a fisherwoman who plies the shoals, not the deep seas. She seems as if this everyday part of her life, her appearance, is not something that she wants to part with.
The first appearance is just the tide lapping at the edges of the pond. The water seems more disturbed than it usually is. It's rougher. It's almost like tidal waves. And the lapping of the waves grows louder and louder until it turns into a voice. And Mariska speaks, and she goes, "What you want is achievable, but understand that what you want is never really what you get. All of our choices have consequence. You will face these consequences if you choose to go."
Mariska, your name is known to us who sail the sea. I understand there is a price that is to be paid, and I have left my boots, as the rituals have called for. I have a talisman I can trade, but I am aware that there is a price. If you can give me passage across the sea to the land I seek and the life that I should be leading, perhaps the price is worth it.
The price is not anything you can give, but rather the life that you choose to live.
The petitioner goes very pale.
We flash back, and Mariska is the oldest daughter, but the only daughter, with a ton of sons to a fisherman. And each of them took their turn fishing with their father on the ships every day, every year, every decade. But eventually all of the brothers left to seek their own fortunes. They left, they traveled the seas, they traveled the ocean, each one finding more and more wonderful riches than the last. But Mariska stayed behind. Her father needed tending to. Someone had to cook, someone had to clean, someone had to sew the nets back together. And Mariska watched every single one of them go. And when it was finally her turn, when she decided it was her turn to leave, things didn't go the way that she planned. And that is why she's haunted with regret.
A light from the clouded sky catches our petitioner's eye. And as she sort of focuses and squints and tries to see what's there, she's startled by a breeze coming from behind her. So she whirls around, and there, suspended above the ground, is Rurik, whose crown of lilies is intact and who looks to be a middle-aged woman. And she says, "Friend, I can give you what you wish, but starting over means starting over. Should you seek my fortune in your passage, you must live as a beggar for 7 years and 7 days, never bathing, never wearing any clothes except the pelt of a wolf. Then I shall grant your request." And we flash back to a much younger version of Rurik, a woman in her early 20s. And we see her outside a shop where a beautiful general store that has fallen into disrepair, the window boarded, the door covered with ropes and locks, begging with a town constable to be let back in. She was disinherited. When her father died, she had a brother who had absconded and wasn't able to inherit the business on her own. So she was forced into beggardom. When she had skills, she had money, she had her book and ledger of accounts, but without access to that store, she had to live with the frustration of knowing how much she could provide for herself, for her town, for her relatives, but without the ability to do so.
As the petitioner looks around at the assembled Rusalka, she looks to Semyon and says, "I will not take your offer, wise Semyon."
This is your loss.
Looking to Marishka, she says, "Marishka, I make appropriations to you every time I go out onto the sea, and I shall continue to do so. But I cannot accept your gift. Rurik, my friend, the power of the Rusalka is known to me. If this is the price I must pay for what I wish in my life, I will pay it. 7 years is not the rest of my life. I accept. Please, help me."
Well, I mean, if you're cool with it, I think the fairy tale version of this would be, by the time the 7 years are up, she realizes that all she really wants is home, and then is forced to, sort of slowly build up the funds for a passage back. Or maybe she finds herself at the shores of a pool in the new land, looking for a bargain home.
Yeah, what happens right now in this moment
Sure.
between us?
So as soon as she says that, wind kicks up and swirls around the petitioner, fluttering her clothing and making her bare toes curl into the dirt, searching for warmth. When the breeze subsides, she is dressed in a wolf pelt, and it looks fresh. It's nice. The fur is gleaming and healthy. This is clearly a wolf taken in their prime. As we look forward perhaps 7 years and 7 days, the wolf pelt is reduced to almost like a tan hide. The fur so worn and matted, the color gray, and her skin similar pallor, where she takes residence where in this new land?
She would start to travel the land away from the village towards this new life, whatever that may be. And so
She given like a wanderlust by the.
I think that's
belt,
part of it,
too?
is that it becomes part of this mania where it's like, I have to get across the sea, but I cannot book passage. I am no longer a sailor. So she begins to try and find other ways, like walking there. So she is going from like town to town, maybe even trying to beg for passage, stuff like that. She's very much not accepted. There's a lot of prejudice against her. People don't want her around. And so the 7 years and 7 days are not great. Sleeping outside, sleeping in the dirt and the mud and the rain, having people call you names, throw things at you. She becomes very introverted, just wanting to protect herself, but with this core knowledge that she made the pact with the Rusalka, and one day her dreams will come true. And so at the end of that 7 years and 7 days, what happened? Like, is there any magical thing that happens, or any like thing that happens, or is it just sort of like learn your lesson? Is that the deal?
Well, I think on the eve of the final day, as the sun sets and the sky fades from red to pink to purple to deep, deep blue and finally to black, as the first star begins to wink, she looked expectantly at
She's
the sky,
on the shore.
right?
She's like calling Rurik's name.
And then Rurik appears as a child,
What?
a 6-year-old with pleats and a little knee-length play dress, and says, "Child, what have you learned?"
That I can endure anything for what it was promised.
And are you ready to take that journey?
Yes, I've been waiting. I feel as if half my life is gone.
Only you can decide whether that was worth it or not. But go with my blessing and know that I will get you safely to the opposite shore, but from there, it is on you to make your new life what you wish. And know that if you call on me again, a new price will have to be paid.
Awesome.
from the north and then around the northeastern and then eastern edge of the pond creeps a raggedy girl. She is maybe 14, 15, or perhaps even younger and posturing to look like an adult. She peers interestedly at the den of the crocodile, where there is like a belly slide worn into the shore of the pond. Not going too close, definitely not putting her fingers or toes down near the opening, but looking at it with interest and with the experienced eyes of a hunter. She's devoted her life to capturing this amphibious beast that lives in the briny and murky shores, perhaps in the swamp, sort of undergrowth of the forest. And she believes that the Rusalka can teach her how to ensnare this creature, the creature that she thinks killed her mother. No one will tell her how her mother died, where her mother went, even when that happened, but she knows it was before her living memory. And she wants more than anything else to get answers, or if not, to get revenge. So she kneels down by the southeastern shore, having rounded the corner where the crocodile lives, puts her palms facing upward on her thighs, and closes her eyes and says, "Oh, Rusalka, I am without a mother, and you are the only ones that I have left. I need guidance. I need someone to help me find this beast and to kill it. And I'm willing to do whatever it takes. So please, come to my aid."
The whipping of the shrouds, they are sort of flapping really like snapping as the wind is really picking up. From her perch, the petitioner's perch in front of the pond, she's looking at her reflection, and that reflection begins to stand up towards her.
Oh, no.
And the water drips down it, revealing Bodana. Bodana's spined hair, her ancient updo, her cape that goes on forever and ever and ever, almost seeming to be the entire pond itself, stares right at the petitioner, floating now above the water, and says to her, "I can give you what you seek. You seek revenge on this creature. This I can give you. I give it to you freely, as one who has lost much as well. I see something in you, child, something I like."
Freely, Mother Bodana? In truth?
Freely. We flash back. We are centuries in the past. The village is a little more than a crossroads for stagecoaches at this point. There is a general store that in operation. Bodana is a young girl, the same age as this huntress who has come to the shore. And Bodana is dressed finely, regally perhaps. It seems like she may be the daughter of perhaps a holy person or the daughter of the leader of this place. She is watching body upon body upon body being taken out of homes, piles being burned, people with sheets around their mouths and noses, wending sheets fluttering out of windows. There is a great plague that has struck the village, has decimated the village, including the owner of the general store.
The waves, despite the petitioners trying to stay away from the shore, the waves lap up further and further and further until they wrap around her feet. And in that moment, Marishka appears, and she's holding a small silver box. And she says to her, "I can give you the opportunity to take the revenge you need without fear for your own life. You need but just give me one thing, and you shall have it."
Mother Marishka, what is the price you require?
A piece of you that you will not miss.
That I will not miss?
Not for now. And we flash back. When sailors die at sea, they don't get a proper burial. When sailors die, they are sewn into their hammocks, which are weighed down by cannonballs, and then their bodies are dropped into the ocean. What remains of Mariska is the cannonball, and it lays at the edges of where the sea meets the pond.
The wind whips around the petitioner and then begins to constrict, and a thin hand strokes the petitioner's cheek, and a voice is in their head as they're constricted and squeezed by a thing that they cannot see. And they hear a voice say, "Your mother may be inside our crocodile," which means that she is still part of that crocodile. I can exchange one for one. I can make this crocodile into your mother. But I will need you to go get someone for me. Bring them here. I'll need to make an exchange.
Mother Semyon, what kind of person? What person indeed?
There's a woman in the village. Another mother, a different mother of children. And I will need you to bring her here. And she will help you with the crocodile. For a daughter alone cannot do this. Then we flash back to an older woman who stands proudly at her door as her husband goes off to his ship to catch his fish and do his work. And she stands proudly like she's standing on the prow of a ship, but her ship now is her home. She smiles as she hears the voice of her daughter. She turns back and sees like all her love, all of the sea and the wind that is outside of that door is forgotten as she sees the face of her daughter. This child runs to her arms and she embraces her, and they spin, and as they spin, we go forward in time, and she's holding this young woman at their wedding. And we see this woman watching her daughter be married, and the village praise, like all clapping, and we see tears as we are close on this older Semyon's face. Then we kind of pull away, and we see Semyon with her arms bound by two gendarmes, two like strong men with guns, military or police officers, her own daughter pointing accusatorily at her and holding up the old flag of Semyon the Reaver.
Oh, no.
Having turned in her mother for piracy. That love fractures, and that's the last thing we see, is the sort of ice forming over her eyes as she watches her daughter turn her back on her.
Mother Semyon, I thank you for your offer, but I could never inflict on someone else the pain of growing up motherless. So with respect, I must decline.
Yeah, the wind that's been constricting you whips away, and there's like a paper cut, like thin slice on your cheek.
Yeah, she's not going to let that heal and like wear it as a scarf on her forever. Cool. Mother Mariska, I thank you for your offer, but I cannot agree to a price I cannot know. So respectfully, I must decline.
The water slowly drains away from her feet.
There's no like little slap of no.
Mariska's not mad.
Cool. Mother Bodana, I know that I cannot rest until this foe is vanquished. And with humility and gratefulness, I accept your gift.
I will cause a great sickness and disease to befall the crocodile. It will die on its own in time, but it will be quite weakened and easy to find by scent until then. Go, do what you must, with my blessing, and the blessing of all children of the forest.
I thank you, and I will.
I sort of elevate her down into the tide pool.
This petitioner, Teresa, will stand up and run excitedly home, not be able to sleep that night, and just lay in her bed where her father, who works nights, is not home, and her younger siblings, scraggly haired and perhaps unkempt, sleep beside her, just laying there thrumming with energy and waiting for her shot. She'll go every day to the pond to walk the perimeter, to look for differences, to have her nose in the wind, smelling for any kind of change. And when does she find that?
Oh, the albino alligator stinks. I mean, it stinks of plague. It itself cannot move. It's weak. You find it sort of rutted out in its normal sort of belly slide that it goes into the pond. And it is sort of like half in the pond, half out, just trying to get up the strength to shove itself forward into the water. And there's just disgusting pinkish bile coming out of its jaws. Its eyes are crusted over with yellowish goop.
And when Teresa sees this, her first reaction is of excitement. Finally, she sees this great white whale that she has been chasing for so long. But then upon second look, when she sees the animal and its clear suffering, her breath catches and her eyes well up, because she has inflicted on something else a pain that she wouldn't wish on anyone, and that perhaps her mother suffered through. And so standing there paralyzed for minutes, she looks and tries to decide what the better thing to do is. Is it to leave the creature to take the course that she put it on, or to take it out of its misery earlier? And finally, when light is falling, Teresa cuts the animal's throat and watches as it dies. And then painstakingly, for 2 hours, covers it in rocks, in flowers, and then in leaves. And asks for forgiveness before going back home.
So approaching from the northwest from the village, the petitioner heads west and south first and then comes up towards the monument, towards the Rusalka. They don't take their shoes off. They almost kind of nudge their foot into the rocks at first, testing their courage, proving their mettle before they proceed further. They do somewhat sheepishly drop an acorn as they head towards the shores of the pond. From the shores, you can see flushed cheeks. You can see an embarrassment to be there in the first place. And they call out and they say, "Rusalka, if that's what you are, I come looking for proof. I come looking to show my friends that you exist, that you can provide what they say you can provide. They are all afraid, but I am not.
From the sky, there is a twinkling like a star, but brighter, and then it gets more and more noticeable, such that you can't really look away. Suddenly, a noise behind you, you spin, and there, with the sound of a branch cracking, is Rurik. Rurik stands in the age of a middle-aged woman and says to you, "Petitioner, you come with no question, offering no boon, and you dare to ask me for proof that I exist. For this, you will get nothing. You ask nothing, you give nothing, you get nothing. And take this with you as a lesson." We flash back to Rurik as a young mother. She is standing at the window of the general store back in its heyday, warm with a beautiful display for the Yule season, with a fire inside, snow outside, just looking cozy as all get out. And as she looks down at her baby, her firstborn, we notice her grow a little bit sad. She stands there thinking of Semyon and the suffering she went through, looking at this perfect newborn baby's face and just wondering if she has the strength to still love her, even if she disappoints her. So that's the Rusalka that Rurik felt a great alliance to once upon a time.
The acorn rises from where it was placed and seems to float hither and yon, circling the child's head, almost like a moon, as it comes to a stop in front of her, and a hand appears, followed by a forearm and an elbow and a shoulder and a torso and then a head.
This is so much creepier when it's stationary and not like emerging.
Revealed finally is the full form of Bodana. Her face is powdered. There's no features whatsoever. Like, she has almost no complexion. It's almost like a mask. Her lips painted on, and her voice sounds soft as she says, "Dear child, my sister has spoken true. You will not find what you seek here. You do not even know what you are about. However, your braveness, I am drawn to it. I am drawn to your spark. You will not find what you seek here. Your friends will not ever believe that you found us and that we spoke to you. However, if you accept my boon, I will make sure that someone comes to you, someone connects with you. But you will not find us. You remind me of myself, or at least you remind me of someone. Bodana. As we flash back again to when Bodana was a child, her mother was lost in the plague, as were many of the members of the community, and she was left orphaned. Her father was in the church to care for a child, it was like against the church laws that they could even care for the child. So it was like, okay, you're going to go into this like church orphanage, I guess. Then she made friends with this young girl, and they became great, close compatriots and friends. And this young girl's family invited Bodana to live with them on their farm. That young girl definitely reminds Bodana of the petitioner. It's something in Bodana that she has a soft spot for these children, for these young girls. Maybe in thanks always for her friend and the kindness of her friend's family.
Tricks of the light. Tricks of the shadow. Do you see what you see here? Do you hear what you hear here? Is it the wind on the water? And you hear this crackling voice that could be leaves rustling in the wind, and perhaps the images of the other Rusalka sisters are shimmering in the shadows, and the leaves casting with light shining through them, casting shadows on the barks of the trees nearby, and some of this bark gets close, even though it shouldn't be moving, and parts and moves and shifts like it shouldn't be, but it's hard to tell. And you hear, there's doubt in your voice. There's doubt in your eyes. That's what your friends see. You can't bring them the truth until you see the truth. I will give you what my sisters will not. I will let you see the truth. And then your knowledge, your gnosis will be a light to prove to them. And you won't even need to prove anything. You will know. You will be sure. As the light again shimmers through the leaves and this tattered form maybe emerges back to shadow and the illusion is gone, we flash to a young Semyon sneaking out of her family's window she's not probably like a early teen. She's slipping out, and she ties a kerchief around her mouth and rushes off to find her friends, because tonight they play robber. They slip into the manse of one of the more well-to-do families and sneak in because they're going to play robber. This is the game. And her mother said not to play with these people, not to go out and do this, but this is good fun. They've played it before, but now it's for real. And she slips in and starts going through the silver. Her eyes are taken by this large knife. She hears a gasp and turns to see a young man, a little older than her, in his nightgown holding a candle. But beyond him, she sees her friends scamper off. And he comes up to her, confronts her, and it's a heated, she tries to get away as he grabs her shoulder, and she doesn't even notice when the knife slips into his belly. And she looks down as he falls, blood coming out of his mouth. It's not a game.
Games with consequences.
Rourke, you've given me nothing. You've offered me nothing, so I will take nothing in return. Bodano, my friends are now. They are my present. They are my life. Why would I risk embarrassment for a promise that I'm not even sure would come true?
There's no reason. And the acorn drops as Bodana's cape envelops her as she returns to the pool.
Semyon, you actually promise something. You promise knowledge and something to impress my friends. Of course, your boon is the one that I choose.
And you've come here seeking it honestly. You will get all that you need.
I know what card
The acorn actually kind of raises and begins to glow, fills your vision with light. You blink and your neck is sore and craned as you're staring at the moon. Your head is up, and as you look down, the Rusalka are gone, but standing all around you are semi-transparent figures. And they see you see them, and they turn and they approach you. and their cold hands pass through you as they try to touch you and reach you.
The petitioner stumbles back and then just bolts back towards the village.
Yeah, and it's perhaps they feel it's a nightmare. When they awaken, it will be gone. And when they wake with chills all through the night, there's a face that is not their mother standing over their bed. And again, a cold hand passes through their shoulder. And the rest of their days are spent seeing the dead who can see them and who try to reach out and touch them and maybe suck a little bit of heat and life from them.
This is how you get more Rusalka.
Well, do your friends know that this exists? What is the proof?
Yeah, what do you do? What happens to this?
I feel
petitioner?
like they try to tell them, but of course no one believes them. You can't say, oh, I'm seeing ghosts, especially to young children, and have them actually believe that that's what you're saying. They think it's a prank, they think it's a joke, and then they start thinking that you're not quite right.
Mm-hmm. And part of that too is that they're afraid of you. I think like there's a tone shift and something like
Something changed when she went to that
Something
pool.
changed.
Should have gone with Bodhana. I would have had real friends.
It's a proof, but it's a proof you can't share.
There you
That's
go.
pretty damn fairy tale, if you
Yeah.
ask me.
Time
Yeah.
passes.
Time
Time is
passes.
gonna pass.
Time passes.
so we've lost our crocodile.
He's so gone now.
I mean, the bones
We've had
are
a
still
haunted
there.
a
The bones
haunted
are
girl.
still
The
there.
bones are still there.
Yeah, as time passes, I think the rocks will kind of sink into the soil and maybe the wildflowers spread.
Yeah.
And giving us a little bit of a meadow that, you know, in certain conditions
it.
has a weird little funk to it.
Someone like people have come back from the pond with these gifts, and so the village has started to sort of build up their what they hope are like magical barriers. So the stones now ring more of this area, and in fact, maybe even like from the crocodile on, they kind of go and create like a stone wall.
Like they wall off the pond to the
so
ocean.
towards the ocean. Yeah.
Yeah.
Up into where like the dunes are off on the sides or something, or cliffs, so that they hope that these white stones will protect them and be something that someone should no longer cross. And this little area here is one of the few sort of almost access points for that. And the Croc's cairn makes up part of the stone wall.
I love that. It's like a border crossing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say like maybe a decade has passed, something like that. So this is over the course of 10 or so years they've done this. These sheets, they've increased though. Like more sheets are here, and they've spread to the other side.
I think the water is almost entreaching on them at this point, because the walls between the water and the pond are starting to break down,
Totally, like-
and they're almost
Like an old pier.
swamped.
Yeah, exactly. Are the
Yeah.
they're more underwater than they are not at this point. The
Yeah, and there's
poles?
some that are just like all sort of
bent.
catchy.
Yeah.
Eventually, this will look like a harbor.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly. I
as
love
the,
that. Yeah,
as
like
the
the-
water
yeah, like
comes up
the-
to the stone wall, maybe they make it seaworthy. Maybe they align it with sand.
The fabric in the water too
Yeah,
looks ghostly. in
Put
a
your
lot of
harbor
ways.
on the Rusalka pool. That makes perfect.
Yeah, really great idea. Welcome, traders.
You like some ghosts?
This is what we have.
Yeah, so I think that's where we're at as we go into our next petitioner. It's been a little while since someone's come by. Those who have come have been during the day to lay stones and make small offerings over these stones to imbue them with some sort of power. Maybe they've etched stuff into some of them. I don't know if Rusalka play cards. to pass the time, but your revelries are broken by sounds in the night. And into, actually to this altar area come three, I'd say teens, young adults, 17, 18-year-olds.
The ones that are dumb enough to ask for an offer.
Yeah. They stumble forward. One hangs back, hesitant, and looks about nervously. He's a pale boy, but sturdily built, with wispy blonde hair, beautiful blue eyes. It's a handsome, well-built farm boy. In front of him is another boy who's kind of rangy, dark hair, sort of sallow, and he's sweating. He's struggling. There's a young woman who is the mirror of this boy. So perhaps these are twins. Between them, they drag a body, and they place this body on the altar. It's a body of another young boy, maybe a little bit younger than them, with a shock of blonde hair. You can sense the warmth from the three, but this is a cold body. They begin to bicker amongst themselves. The tall, rangy guy goes, "Gregor, listen. This is the only way. You know it was an accident, right? This is the only way. We gotta fix this." Gregor goes, "This isn't right. We shouldn't have been playing at it. This isn't right." And the girl turns to the pond and goes, "Quiet, both of you. We'll do this right." And she says, "Rusalka, women, I come to you as a young woman in her prime, and we ask of you a boon. This young boy has been taken early in his life. He was taken in a grievous accident, and we would ask that you help us bring him back." And Gregor kind of breaks out into her and says, "It weren't no accident. You shouldn't have tipped those stones on top of him." And the sort of duo turn on him and say, "Shush! It's fine. No one will know. If he's fine, no one will know. It was an accident."
A light from the sky threatens to blind them. So suddenly and brightly it emerges. And over the water this time, not behind them but in front of them, appears Rurik floating. She's the same age as the lead petitioner who spoke to her. And the sort of crescent moon waxing is present behind her. And she says, "Oh, petitioner, what a rare offering you bring to me tonight. Do you want to bring this boy back from my side? I can do that. I can restore him. But how I restore him will be up to me."
The two look greedily as the blonde, sturdy farm boy looks hesitant.
And we flash back to a very similar night, but you can see that the shoreline is pristine. There was no mixing between the ocean and the pond. The border was clean cut, no stones, no altar even around the pond. And you see that Rurik is in the same spot, actually, but not floating above the water, instead struggling in it and trying desperately to swim, but with the look of someone that hadn't had the chance to learn and trying to almost grab at the water in a way that was absolutely futile. And about 10 yards away, toward the middle of the pond, you see the eyes and smile and dripping wet hair of Marichka watching with a sideways smile. like Julia has now. That is the other Rusalka that watched as I drowned but did not act to save me. Dun dun dun!
Dun 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 dun.
The water that laps in from the ocean sort of almost has a tinkling sensation to it. Each time the water crashes down on each other, it sounds like laughter until it grows and grows until something much more sinister. I don't even think that Mariska actually emerges. She doesn't show her true form in this sense. She just kind of laughs and she goes, "You've such disrespect for life does not deserve any sort of gift or boon. You have deserved everything that has come to you." And we flash back. The boat that Mariska was on that was attacked didn't deserve to be attacked. It was a small merchant vessel trying to make its way back from a new land full of riches. And Mariska just wanted to return home. She wanted to see her father one last time. When the cannonballs ripped into her, she only saw one face. And it still haunts her in this pond.
The dead body rises, almost as if it has been hoisted up from the ground. It's still dead and flopping. As she appears, Bodana is hugging this body to her, almost like they're dancing. And she looks around at the friends as she appears from nothing. And her voice is like stereo in their ears as she says forcefully, "This mistake can be undone. What you seek is in the sea. I placed it there myself. Seek my treasure chest, and you shall find a doll within. Bring that doll. Dance the doll with your friend, and they shall return." And she lays the body back down upon the ground and sort of shakes her head for a moment as if she's flashing back. Staying with the family on the farm, she learned much from them. Not only the strength of what it meant to live a life of salt and earth, but the appropriations and the rituals of the primal forces. She was taught in the ancient ways how to summon spirits, bind them, how to call on the senses of animals. But what she wanted most in her life was her father's regard. Her mother had died so young, when she was so young. Her father had no time for her, in fact, seemed to see her almost as a plague or something not to even be dealt with or in communion with. And so she created a doll in fashioning it after her father. And she spoke the rituals that would bring him to her, finally. But something went wrong. And when he arrived, there was nothing behind his eyes. But the doll twitched. And so she locked it away and threw it into the sea.
Gregor comes forward and goes and starts to strip off his shirt, sturdy man, and says, I'll go retrieve this treasure. I'll do it. The brother and sister, though, look at each other and scowl. And the sister comes up and says, "It's too much work. It's not worth it. We'll take the easy one. Just give him back to us. It'll be fine. No one will even know. They won't miss him. And Gregor and her start arguing. It gets pretty heated, and it's only stopped when the other twin brings a rock down on Gregor's head and leaves him there.
Stop doing murder, children.
With every murder, the pond goes stronger.
God, teens.
Always murdering.
Blood.
And they look down, so the passion of their crime leaves them. They look down, and now they've got 2 bodies on their hands. Okay, look. We'll get the little one back, and we'll just shove Gregor in the pond. No one's going to come looking for him. So give us the little one back.
Oh, is it to me you speak?
Well, yeah. Here, you can have this loaf. This loaf.
Just loaf.
He's
I
just
like
a loaf
that.
of bread.
Yeah, come on. I like
said
that.
Like a
Like
big
cat with-
pumpernickel.
It's like a luggage. It's a luggage oaf.
Yeah, I love it. No, a loaf. That might be,
Yeah.
a colloquial term in the
Yes.
village.
The bread maker's son.
Who wants to be that?
Peter.
All right.
That's the little one. It's
Yeah,
Peter. Peter and Love.
What was his name in Hunger Games?
Yeah, it was
Yes,
Peter.
Peter.
Oh,
Literally was
bless.
Peter.
Bless Suzanne. Okay. No one has more disrespect for life than those that are fullest of it. All right. You'll see what I can do. And perhaps in time, with age, with wisdom, you will realize what a poor decision you made after another poor decision, bringing you here tonight. And Rurik sort of spins almost like she's pirouetting over the surface of the water. And she sort of flies upward. And the star that had brightened to herald her arrival dims until it disappears. The 2 teens left standing are left sort of looking around like, did anything change? Until they see out of the water 2 bright specks of light that rise up, spin around each other, fuse into one, and then break apart again, falling into the chests of the 2 dead bodies. And both of them are reanimated violently, shaking, spasming, such that the alive teens jump backward. And then both men sit up and look around. Maybe they twitch their feet or their arms, shake their limbs to get some feeling back in them. But when you look a little bit closer, both of them are just vacant-eyed. And you tell them to stand, they'll stand. You tell them to sit, they'll sit. If you ask them to sleep, they'll sleep. But there is a distinct lack of life in there. They're just animated. Though occasionally, if you watch them and don't have their attention, you'll see that sometimes their eyes do focus. And they look a little bit alert. But they're always staring off in the distance, almost at nothing. At something, though, that the living can't see.
This is how you get zombies. Slavic zombies.
Slavic zombies.
So they're over the moon. They're like, oh,
Zombies.
we got both of them back, a 2 for 1. The brother and sister just rub their hands together and say, come on, let's go back. And dutifully, these fleshy automatons follow them home. They get to the crossroads where they will split to their respective homes, and the figures still follow them. And they're like, no, go back. And the figures just turn and start walking off, just with no regard for what they're walking in or through. And the 2 look at each other with concern and go, we may not get away with this. And they just stick close to them and start giving them careful instruction to guide them back home into bed. And then, exhausted as dawn is breaking, they hear the father of these 2 young men awaken, and the family start to get up and go as they rush out the door.
There are tales in the village of people who have been like this before. And so this is not unheard of. Maybe it is mythical and legendary. But the reaction is not positive.
The family is looked as cursed.
Yeah, and I think they also know the parents of the boys and others in the village. They know the crew that their kids ran with, at least Gregor. Those children are treated with great suspicion, maybe sort of frosty politeness to their face, but they find themselves really kind of shrifted, very much not belonging, no longer the sort of like confident king and queen of their age group that they used to be.
10 years before Salem witch trial style.
Yeah, and even then, I would even see these two as like trying to turn like who they can still turn the ear of against these people saying they're cursed,
sure.
saying they're bad, and like sowing dissent and really splitting the village up, so there's cohesion is lost. We interrupt our story here, and we'll continue in our next communique. I was one of your players, John Holt. You can find me on Twitter at Lord Joho and on Instagram at board_ghost. Ken, where can people find you?
Board Ghosts, find me on Twitter at Berlingsbeard, Berlings Beard, and on Instagram at the same name. I am a freelance dungeon master in the New York City area, so if you're looking for someone to run your games, please do contact me. Also, please check out our Patreon at patreon.com/BoardGhost, which is...
Well, I am Amanda McLaughlin. I run Multitude, which is a podcast collective and consultancy. If you make podcasts, we have free resources. If you want to hire us, we are available for consulting. And we make 5+ amazing shows. So just put the word Multitude into your podcast app that you're listening to us right here in, and you can find all of our shows. I co-host Spirits, Join the Party, and Waystation. On Twitter, I'm at She's So Mickey, and Multitude is at Multitude Shows.
And I am Julia Schifini. You can find me at Julia, SCHIFINI on Twitter. And that's also...
Bunch of eyes.
That's
Lots
also
of eyes.
my website, just juliaschifini.com. I also do a lot of audio drama and audio fiction work, sound design, voice acting, consulting, community management, all the things.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for being on.
This has been so awesome.
great.
Is this so
Thank
fun?
you so
Yeah.
much.
I get to be a water hag. I love it.
Heck, water heck.
Welcome.
Or a mercurial water spirit.
I prefer sea hag, please.
Artisanal
Strange
sea hag.
women
Yeah.
lying in ponds, distributing swords.
It's not a form.
Yes,
It's not a basis for a system of government.
There we go.
Anyway, thanks for having us on
Yes,
your
thank
farcical aquatic ceremony.
Looking forward to
We're
next
very
time.
excited for it.
All right. So to find links to everybody's information, go to boardghost.com. You can pierce the veil and attempt to contact us at BoardGhostWorld on Twitter. Shout out through the ether if you have desires we can fulfill. We'd like to thank Pat Couples for our theme song and interlude music. You can find more about Pat at patcouples.tumblr.com or on his band's website, hotelsandhighways.com. If you're not alone in the void, share our stories. The more they are consumed, the truer they become.
Dying don't agree with me.